And welcome back to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. Excuse me. My next guest is so special. So very, very special on many levels. Many, many levels. Not least because 2 years ago, when this show started, he was my first guest. He didn't know me. He didn't know whether I knew anything. He didn't know whether I was intelligent. He didn't know whether I was smart. He didn't know whether I was informed. He didn't know whether I knew the history. Many, at a time when many didn't even know that Nigeria, indeed, there's a show called Borderlines, cared about what's going on in Israel Palestine. Miko Peled, the son or grandson of one of the signatories to Israel's Declaration of Independence, whose father was an army general in the 6 Day War. Miko came on this show and he gave us the honor of his knowledge and lived experience. Miko Peled, I bet you didn't know that. You weren't expecting me to say that, were you?
No, it's very kind of you. It's very nice to hear. Thank you
Well,
for that wonderful introduction. It's such a pleasure to see you again.
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. You didn't know that at the time, but yeah, many
Yeah.
didn't take us seriously, and here we are, 2 years later. So there's so much. I had Daniel Levy earlier. He had to go off, so we only did kind of 35, maybe 40 minutes. He couldn't do an hour, so I did an open mic. I answered questions. But I have some of the questions that I wasn't able to answer because of time, because you were coming on. So I will be adding those questions to yours if that's okay, because I'm pretty sure you can answer them. Here we are, 2 years later. 2 years later, we have Shamil Sheikh. Unpack Shamil Sheikh for us in the Miko Peled way.
Well, again, thanks for having me. I assume you're talking about the agreements and the discussions and negotiations that took place in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Well, yes, I called it. I said to Daniel, we've had Oslo 1, Oslo 2. Do we now call
No,
this Shamil Sheikh 1? Or,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Well, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, we can see very well on the ground that nothing has changed. And the two or three most important points that should have been addressed were not addressed. The first one is Palestinian liberation, not addressed at all. The second one is the safety and security of the Palestinian people, not addressed at all. And the third one is freedom of movement for Palestinian. And when I say, I'm not only talking about the Palestinians in the Gaza death camp, it used to be a concentration camp, now it's a death camp. I'm talking about Palestinians throughout all of Palestine. None of them enjoy liberty and freedom. None of them have any sense, any kind of law or or governing body that protects them. And they do not enjoy freedom of movement, not in their own country at least. And so any agreement that does not include these and puts all the responsibility on the victims of the violence, on the victims of the genocide, and no responsibility whatsoever on those who are executing the violence, which is the state of Israel, the executing the genocide. An agreement like that is meaningless. And as we see, it's already been violated. Israel violated it. Israel actually never had an agreement that they didn't violate. And so this was completely expected. But any agreement that doesn't have those elements is meaningless and worthless. And this is one more of those.
Excuse me while I get rid of my cough. Here's the thing. One of the things you've warned, which you've called, the rebuilding, the so-called rebuilding of Gaza, you've called it a Trojan horse. What exactly do you believe the term reconstruction is hiding? Because a Trojan horse implies that there's something more there that we're not seeing.
Well, first of all, like I said, what Gaza needs right now is liberation. This death camp, people need to be liberated. They need to be allowed to leave. They need to be allowed to access the resources. Palestine is a rich country. The only reason, I mean, starvation in Palestine is absurd. people dying of dehydration or and that sort of thing. So they need to be liberated, and that should be the main key. This whole notion of rebuilding Gaza, that somehow, Americans and Israelis and others will come. In other words, people from the outside
Mm.
will come and rebuild it, and then Gaza would be governed by Tony Blair or God knows who. It's completely ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Of course, there needs to be rebuilding. Of course, there needs to be massive amounts of humanitarian aid. But this whole notion that it all needs to come at the approval of those who are executing the genocide, it all comes with no consequences whatsoever to those who have been committing this genocide, is again, it's bound to fail. It's completely ridiculous. But the idea to bring more people from the outside in order to rebuild and govern and so on, I mean, it's almost like, the imperial powers haven't learned anything. The colonial powers haven't learned anything. They want to continue and do what they've done, certainly throughout Africa and through other, other places to maintain their control over people of color. That's basically really what this is. And they're
And
trying to do this same thing, and it's not going to work.
well, and this is the thing, because we've had, of course, the first stage of this peace plan, which is what they call it, Trump's peace plan. And there's been the exchange of hostages, both from Hamas and also Palestinian hostages. But we're still in this place where, indeed, as you said, Israel, and everybody agrees, Israel never sticks to any plan. But despite the fact that Israel doesn't stick to the plan, Israel also gets the most sort of sympathy and all of that stuff, even though they constantly break the plan. What do you make of that? Why? And before we go further, there's a question that I've been wanting to ask you, and I think you will be perfect for this. Is that the second question to that is, why in God's name does America care so much about Israel? And where did it start from?
Well, that's a very good question. I think people don't realize how long the Zionists have been campaigning in the United States and in Western Europe. They've been campaigning long before the state of Israel was established. They've been campaigning at least 100 years, probably more than 100 years. Since the beginning of the 20th century, they've been campaigning, and they were very smart, and they're still, they're very good at it. They understand that, for example, here in the United States, there's a saying that goes, all politics is local. If you want to get things done, you have to start with local politics.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who runs for city council or a mayor or police commissioner gets a trip to Israel, gets gifts, gets information. I mean, they are on it. Every city, every small city. Can you imagine how many cities there are in this country? The education system is a Zionist education system. There are Zionist organizations throughout the entire United States that check the textbooks, the social studies textbooks in schools here in America to make sure that words like occupation or words like settlers or settler, God forbid, settler colonialism or anything like that in reference to Israel. So they have been doing this for 100 years. In America, everybody is a Zionist unless somebody comes up and tells them that Zionism is wrong, because that's what they're educated. They see it in the churches, they see it in the synagogues, they see it in TV, they see it in popular culture. Everywhere you go, Israel is always the heroes. Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims are always, always the enemy. So it makes perfect sense for Americans to support Israel. I mean, that's what they learn. I mean, the other guys we know are terrorists. And you pack on top of that lies upon lies upon lies about people of color in general, and about Muslims and about Arabs. And so here you have it. It's perfectly normal and natural for Americans to support Israel because this is what they learn. Nobody is challenging that narrative in a systemic way like the Zionists have done. And so that's the big challenge. But that's why, and on top of that, you've got, every member of Congress, every member of Senate, they're all taken care of by the Israeli lobby, by the Zionist lobby. So they have an entire system of this, and they have influence on every aspect of American life. Every aspect of American life has very strong Zionist roots. So that's why they support Israel. It makes perfect sense. Now, on top of that, the weapons industry is making a lot of money selling weapons that are then being tested on Palestinians, and then they can be sold as combat proven. That's really what it's about. That's really the bottom line. That's why America supports Israel so much.
So
And
effectively,
that's why also they can't, excuse me, I'll just finish. They can't let anything go. Any member of Congress, any elected official, any policy issue, they will not let go because they know that as soon as they start losing, it's a snowball effect. They will lose all the way.
so effectively, actually, let me turn that around. Has Palestine then become that space for America to continue to extract, excuse me, what it wants, how it wants it, by using Israel? Is that what Gaza has become? And is that what the plan is for Gaza? To become yet another extractive field to feed, the American excess of colonialism, imperialism, capitalism, etc.?
Yes. Yes. I mean, I don't know that what they can extract from there. I mean, they did discover natural gas off the coast of Gaza, but I don't think so. I don't know so much that America is going to gain anything from this. I've never understood American support for Israel has got nothing to do, I think, with American interests because they could support any country. I mean, it's not like they care one way or the other. So it's more what the Zionists have been doing to get America on their side. But yes, that's exactly what this is. It's another settler colonial project. It's another imperialist project. And again, it's the allowing people of European descent, white people, to take over the lands and the rights of people of color. I mean, that's been the case all along. In that regard, nothing has really changed.
Let's come back to Sharm el Sheikh. One of the items or 20-point plan is for Hamas to disarm. Yet nobody, and I remember Diana Bhutto said something, the occupied is being asked to disarm, whereas the occupier is not being asked to disarm. So the occupied is being told to keep the occupier safe, but there's no pressure on the occupier to do the same. Why should Hamas disarm, and will Hamas disarm?
In 1982, after the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, at one point, the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, agreed to disarm, and many of the fighters left. And they left the refugee camps unprotected, but they had guarantees from the United States that the camps would be protected and that the United States will provide that protection. It was very shortly after that we got the massacres of the refugee camp Sabra and Shatila in Lebanon. So we know that American guarantees are worthless. Certainly Israeli guarantees are worthless. I don't believe that people who are fighting for their lives against a massive genocidal regime anything should be demanded of them, certainly not to disarm. I mean, the way they portray it, it's as though the Palestinians have some kind of sort of an army and they're attacking Israel. And so they need to disarm. The entire story is turned upside down. And this is a point that I've been talking about actually quite a bit. If they're going to disarm, why are there still Israeli tanks and troops there? Why are there any Israeli tanks allowed to be anywhere in Palestine? But that's another question. And they also talk about de-radicalization. What's radical about our people fighting for their liberty? There's nothing radical about that.
Mm,
What's the radical or de-radicalization that needs to take place is in Israeli society, in the Israeli political arena. That's where the de-radicalization needs to take place because we know they are radical, we know they are racist, we know they are genocidal. But again, this is the way the entire issue of Palestine is always dealt with, upside down, the wrong way.
mm, mm. Let's talk about this annexation vote that we saw. Was it yesterday or the day before? And one of the questions I had asked, one of the callers had asked me before you came on during the sort of open mic session was, JD Vance said it was a stupid hoax because it was told it was a stunt or something. Do you believe it was a stunt? Or do you believe they lied and called it a stunt only because the Americans, President Trump, came out very quickly and said, heck no, you're not going to do that?
I mean, the timing, I think, is obvious. I mean, they couldn't have. I mean, the timing was not a coincidence. There's no
Mm,
question about that of the vote, and it was basically the Israeli government doing what it always has. It's telling the United States and the rest of the world that they will do whatever they want to do. There is no West Bank. In other words, it's ridiculous to talk about the annexation of the West Bank because there is no West Bank. It's been annexed. It's
mm,
gone.
mm.
All you have, I mean, it's completely integrated into the rest of the country, into Israel. There are pockets, or what they call them pockets, but they are really ghettos of Palestinians, some 3.5 million Palestinians living in ghettos throughout that area that used to be the West Bank.
Mm.
But it doesn't exist. There are big Israeli cities built for Israeli Jews only. There are highways and shopping malls and schools. I mean, we're talking about, major billions of dollars invested in development for Jews only. So I think a lot of times people, when they hear the word settlement, they think of a farm or something small. We're talking about major cities,
Mm, mm.
major cities. The West Bank is gone. It does not exist. The only thing that reminds us that there used to be a West Bank is the Palestinians living in ghettos,
Mm.
surrounded by Israeli settlements, surrounded by checkpoints, surrounded by the military, attacked on a regular basis by settlers and the Israeli army. So there is no West Bank. So this whole conversation is just symbolic. It's just to appease, the settlers, the settlers that sit in the cabinet.
S-
Otherwise, it's completely meaningless because, like I said, it's been annexed, it's gone.
mm. So, okay, in that case, you bring one of my later questions forward then. If the West Bank is gone, as you've said, and many have said the same thing, like, what is there to negotiate on? What then is this two-state solution and where is the line?
There is no two-state solution. Two-state solution is a myth. It's always been a myth. It's a very safe myth because everybody knows it can never be achieved. And yet it pretends to show some kind of regard for the right of self-determination for the Palestinians. But it's a hoax. It's a joke. There can never be a two-state solution. There never will be a two-state solution. There's either going to be an apartheid regime, which we see now, which is a genocidal, not only apartheid, but it's a genocidal apartheid regime, or we fight, which is to remove the apartheid regime and establish a real free Palestine with equal rights, a democratic free Palestine with equal rights. Those are the two options.
Since you are on the show, you now say, or at least as of that time, I wasn't aware you said this, but I now know that when people ask you where you come from, you said, I am from Palestine. What does that mean?
Yeah. It means that the regime that has taken over Palestine and decided to rename it has no legitimacy, in my view, and should not have any legitimacy. When we call a country by the name that the Zionists gave it, Israel, we are legitimizing a genocidal apartheid regime. So the country is Palestine. It's been Palestine for thousands of years. It will continue to be Palestine once this dark chapter of the Zionist occupation ends. So if you ask me where I'm from, the country is, of course, it's Palestine. And I invite all people to remember that the country's name was Palestine, and the people who are the indigenous Palestinians continue to call it Palestine, and we should do the same. And so that people understand that what is happening now, this settler colonial project that has been destroying Palestine and trying to annihilate the Palestinian people needs to be brought to an end so Palestine can go back to being Palestine. And it was always like a mosaic. It was a tolerant place. It was a place where different religions, different ethnic groups resided, and so on throughout the millennia. And it needs to go back to that. And that is the vision. The vision of a free Palestine with equal rights is the only vision that benefits everyone who lives there. But primarily, it will guarantee the rights of the Palestinian people to return to their land, to live in safety and security, which right now they can't do. But yes, completely. I mean, and also my sense of loyalty, my sense of belonging is to Palestine as Palestine.
Miko, it's interesting what this sort of the penultimate sentence you made is that for the Palestinians to return and to resettle back into their land, you're basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are campaigning or proposing the sort of allyship that many Israelis, even the liberals, would not propose, which is I am ready to give up the land that was bestowed on me by Zionism for the people, back to the people, and hand it back to the people who actually own that land. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, who are the Zionists to bestow land on anyone? You know, they talk about the Balfour Declaration when the British Foreign Secretary promised the Jewish millionaire by the name of Rothschild Palestine. It was two white racists who had nothing to do with Palestine, giving a country that belongs to other people that don't matter because they're not European and they're not white, to each other. They're talking about it as though they own it, as though they have the right to, like you said, to bestow it on somebody else. It was theft and murder, and Palestinians have a right to return and get what's rightfully theirs, receive what's rightfully theirs. And then, the settlers, Israelis are like the whites in South Africa. They were settlers, they were colonizers, but now they're part of the landscape. Israelis are the same. They're part of the landscape in Palestine now. But to live at the expense of Palestinians, to me, is completely, that needs to be reversed completely. Yes.
Okay, back to the one state solution then. If we're going to talk one state, we have to talk about Zionism. Zionism itself as a structure, as an ideology, as a political, almost even as an existence, and as a society. Do you think, or perhaps I should frame my question another way, and I'm going to self-reference now. I have always been of the belief that for us to truly get to the healing, which I don't believe anybody's talking about yet, for us to truly get to a place of truth, to a place of healing, we have to get to a place of truth. And for us to truly get to a place of truth, Zionism must be confronted, not by the Palestinians, but by the Israelis. And therefore, the moment Zionism is confronted, unless Zionism is outlawed, the way Nazism was outlawed, then Israel cannot begin to talk about anything else. Would you agree with that?
Well, Nazism was outlawed after the Nazis were defeated. Zionists have to be defeated. They have to be brought to their knees. Granted, I don't think we can, I'm not talking necessarily about an armed confrontation. I'm talking about severe sanctions and so forth, like the example of apartheid in South Africa. But first of all, you have to defeat the regime. You have to bring it down. And once Israeli society, which is, largely supports the genocide, once they are on their knees, they will begin to confront their past. It's not going to happen until Zionism is defeated, and the only way to defeat it is to stand with the Palestinian people, not just in solidarity, but in resistance, supporting them in every form of resistance that they pursue. And granted, most of the Palestinian resistance has been unarmed through the decades. and to stand with the Palestinian people and demand that the fall of the apartheid state. And what's interesting, I have to say this, since you're in Nigeria,
Mm,
one of the things that puzzles me the most is African support for Israel and the fact that Israel has diplomatic missions in over 40 African countries,
hmm.
and Israeli delegates are there, and Israel shows up at the at all these events and
The
all
AU,
these
yes.
arenas. Why is Israel allowed to even set foot officially on the continent after all the horrors that they committed, not only in Palestine, but all the horrors that they supported in Africa
Mm,
against African?
mm, mm.
But so yeah, we all need to unite on this. Missions, diplomatic missions, I believe, need to be closed down. Any trade needs to end, and they need to be treated like the pariah that they are until they fall on their knees, and then liberation will be for everyone. And I think this will benefit everyone. It will benefit
Mm.
anybody who has ever suffered from settler colonialism and racism.
So how do we get to this one state solution? I'm still going to go back to Sharm el Sheikh, but since we're here, and I know you're a big major campaigner, you and Ilan Pape, you've constantly campaigned for a one state solution. How are we going to get there? Because Miko, nobody's no like there isn't a single world leader who has so much mentioned that. None of them, no leader at the UN, unless I've missed it, has said anything about a one state solution. All they've said is two states, two states, two states. Where do we start from?
Well, first of all, I'd rephrase the question a little bit. One state is the reality. There's a single state on all of Palestine.
Mm-hmm,
It's the apartheid state. The apartheid state governs the lives of everyone who lives there,
mm-hmm,
granted under different sets of laws for different people. Israeli Jews live on the privileged side, and the Palestinians live under different sets of laws that are, racist, horrible, segregationist laws. So one state is the reality. Two states, everybody knows, is a myth. Even the people that talk about it know, world leaders know that it's a myth. And if they don't, then they are criminally, ignorant. So for example, I with some Palestinian comrades established an organization, and we have a space here in Washington, D.C., on Capitol Hill, right near the Capitol,
mm,
where we are. Our purpose is to robustly, in a very robust way, educate Americans and educate politicians here about this idea of, moving from a one state that is an apartheid state. And it's not because I say it, it's never mind the fact the Palestinians have been saying, but Amnesty International has said it, and many other institutions have said that it is an apartheid regime. And so to move from supporting that to supporting the idea of a liberated Palestine
mm,
from the river to the sea. Right now, I'm sure you know this, if you say river to the sea, if you say free Palestine, if you say liberation, then they say you're anti-Semitic, you're a terrorist, and so on,
mm.
which is, of course, nonsense. So we have to focus on educating people and making them see the one state, two state is not the conversation. The conversation is Palestine under apartheid regime called Israel, or a free Palestine with equal rights. Those are the options. Like we said, there's no West Bank. The settlers are Israelis are everywhere. The settlements are everywhere. This whole idea that Palestinians need to accept the smaller portion of their country because in the two-state solution,
Mm,
Palestinians, well, who decided the Palestinians get the small portion? Maybe the Israelis should move into the small portion. Palestinians should have the right to the bigger portion, right?
mm,
All of these things are completely absurd. And at the end of the day, what are the virtues of two states?
mm.
What are the virtues of more separation and segregation? Knowing full well it's an impossibility, which takes us to the very beginning, which is this is an empty conversation. This is complete nonsense. So the conversation has to be on the liberation of all of Palestine. And that used to be the conversations in the 60s and 70s. And then it was dumbed down with all these ideas of peace and negotiating with Israel and so forth, which of course was a big mistake. So we need to revive that. And it is being revived. I mean, here in the United States, the student encampments
Mm,
last year, and a lot of the movements and the float. I mean, all these new initiatives that have come up, which were wonderful, all talk about liberation from the river to the sea. There is no misunderstanding here at all. And I think, Africans, if they look at their history and people in other parts of the world liberation is
mm,
an important word to talk about, to put out there
mm.
in this context. So I think that's really what needs to be done. The fact that they're not talking about it yet is because right now they don't, it's safe for leaders, for world leaders, for heads of state to say to state because it doesn't mean anything, so they don't have to do anything. If they talked about liberation, now that's a whole different thing. Now they're
Mm.
talking about liberation versus oppression. Now they can't make it into a two-sided kind of it's not a conflict anymore. Now it's a fight for liberation against oppression. It changes the paradigm completely if you use the word liberation. And they're afraid to do that. Nobody wants to be the first one to do that. But that should be the conversation in the context of Palestine, liberation versus oppression, not peace and two states and negotiating with this genocidal regime. All of that makes absolutely no sense. And there's a history. We've seen 100 years in Palestine. We've seen what they've done.
Indeed. And even in the 20-point plan, there is the word liberation and indeed emancipation of the Palestinians. It doesn't even feature, and that's critical. Let's talk about this trusteeship and Tony Blair and the International Commission. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is this pragmatic, or is it just a dangerous rebranding of another takeover, another form of new colonization?
Definitely, it's the latter. It's a new branding of the takeover. And on top of that, it's never going to happen because Israel violated the ceasefire. They're bombing the Gaza death camp again, and
Mm,
they're denying humanitarian aid again. And again, like you said, there's no talk about emancipation, there's no talk about liberty, there's no talk about freedom of access to resources. Palestine is a rich country. Why do Palestinians need aid to come from across the world and enter through Gaza? And the discretion for what is allowed to go in or not is in the hands of the genocidal regime committing the genocide. Why would they
mm.
allow humanitarian aid when they want people to die? It's upside down. It's completely absurd. But no, it is another form of colonization and takeover, but it's never going to happen because
Mm.
Israel wants to continue the genocide and complete the job.
I need to ask you a personal question, Miko, and I know you're not afraid of anything. What would your dad say right now? What would he say? I mean, this is, I've told all of you, Miko's dad was a general in the 1967, the Six Day War, if you like. And I think, if I'm correct, Miko, he became disillusioned not long after that and was not happy with Israel and questioned everything that he was told and said, "You lied to us." What would he say right now?
Well, his dissolution was, in other words, his focus was on this idea of a two-state solution. He's one of the people who initiated this idea
Mm,
right immediately after the war, after the 1967 war. And then he pursued that idea of the two-state solution and peace with the Palestinians and negotiating because his claim was this is the only way to maintain the state of Israel. Because if the state of Israel does not allow the Palestinians a state, then it will not survive.
mm,
And of course, he was right. I think today he would stand very firmly behind the idea of a free, liberated Palestine with equal rights, because that's the only way other than the genocide. So, and he was a very forward-thinking man
mm,
politically.
mm,
He talked about the two states. People said to him, "Are you crazy? We just took these lands. You want us to give them back?
mm,
What are you talking about?"
mm,
And he said, "Well, it's not about that. It's about the fact that we have to recognize that there is another people, another nation living here, and then we need to respect at least the rights, at least in a symbolic way, at least with a small state." But of course, as he was saying this, Israel was destroying and building only for Jews in the West Bank, like they
mm.
did everywhere else. But I'm absolutely certain that had he been alive today, he would have realized that there's only one solution that benefits everyone, who lives in historic Palestine, and that's a free, democratic Palestine with equal rights.
Indeed. You can call now. I'm going to open up the line 0201 277 0993, 0201 465 7190, or send your messages to WhatsApp 0809 597 5805. And Miko, in case you've forgotten what they're like, they've already started calling. Right, do you have a pen near you, Miko? Because I'm going to be answering them sort of 2 or 3 at a time. So I'll give you time. This is you want to grab a pen?
There's a pen here somewhere. Hold on.
Before I unleash my co-hosts on you.
Oh my goodness.
Yes,
Oh my goodness.
yes.
Found a pen.
There you go. Right, okay. I'm coming to your calls now. 1 question per person, short, sharp, and succinct. Hello.
Hello.
Turn off your radio. Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Right. Can't we have a model, a Cypriot model, when Turkey invaded Cyprus in 1974, and there was a buffer zone in Nicosia? We have the southern, the Cypriot, the Greek Cypriot, and the north, the Turkish Cypriots. Can't we have something like that? Why can't we have something like that where the Arabs will do something about it? Because I listened to your guest, and I think his idea, I think, is the best, where we have a one nation, and as I said, the Israelis, they are like there's appetite, and they are like the Rhodesia of those days. The Rhodesia of those.
So what you're talking about here is like you have the Greek Cypriots and you have the Turkish Cypriots.
The Greek model.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. There you go. Is that possible, Miko? Write that down. I'll come back to you in a moment. Hello.
Yeah. Good evening, Sisi.
Good evening. Short question.
Yeah. It's Manuel.
Go ahead.
Your guest talked about the Israeli lobby in the beginning, and I asked one of your previous guests this question, I think about 2 weeks ago. You know that what will the Israeli lobby look like now when we have the Gen Z who seems to have more understanding about the region, about the maps, about the geography? You know, putting into cognizance that in fact they pressure the Spanish government. You know, cities, ATMs.
I need you to wrap up, Emmanuel. What is your question? Be short.
What will the Israeli lobby look like? Is this still significant going forward? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You heard that, Miko. What will the Israeli lobby? You mentioned about the Israeli lobby. Now we have the Gen Zs, right? Is it still going to be significant given the Gen Zs, right? Okay. Hello. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, this is Yusuf.
Go ahead.
Incidentally, my father is also Bakare, and I'm Yusuf.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Your guest is saying that two-state solution is not possible. It's a myth. Just like it was not created in South Africa. But the apartheid regime in Israel, if today we have a one-state solution, would they recognize these Palestinians as even second or third class citizens? Because we still have Arab in present day Israel.
Okay,
who are becoming voiceless.
Okay.
Would they accept them?
Okay, thank you.
That is my question.
Thank you. Under the one-state solution, will Israel accept Arabs, Palestinians, especially as they don't even accept them now? Right. Miko, can I give him a minute too? Right, those 3 questions, they're all the lines are going. So over to you. How long do you want? A minute and a half? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. So the Cyprus model, again, it's a two-state solution model. It's not going to work. An impossibility. The Israeli Jews and Palestinians live in very close proximity geographically, and yet they're completely segregated. It's a very effective segregation. And so, again, that's not a possibility at all. The Israeli lobby is in defensive mode. That's a really good question. They are being attacked. The new young politicians running for office, their first campaign slogan is "No AIPAC money, no Israeli lobby money," and that gets the biggest applause. That is the new slogan of new politicians. There's a shift here in the United States in that regard, and that's a very, very good thing. And then it's not, once the apartheid regime falls, it will not be about Israel controlling there will be no Israel. Israel is a regime that needs to be removed. Israel is the apartheid regime. The fact that they named it Israel and it's biblical and so on, sometimes it's hard for people to come out against it. Israel is the apartheid regime. It's going to collapse. The country will go back to being Palestine. It will be a free, democratic Palestine. They will have one person, one vote elections and move on. So everybody will have equal rights. It will be the rule of law. There will be a constitution, which they don't have. So we're talking about a complete end to the reality where Israelis enjoy all the privileges and all the rights and the control of Palestinian lives.
Excellent. Hello. You need to hurry up. Hello.
Hello, good evening. God bless you. See you again.
Good evening. Yes. Go ahead.
All work.
Our work is fine. Can you ask a question?
My name is Benjamin. I want to come in this way to, let me say, draw a picture of what is happening in that Gaza place.
Very quickly. Very quickly.
For example, now in our country, we have what we call Boko Haram.
Right. Everybody, it's bizarre how they want to compare that. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon to your guest. This is the merchant man.
Okay, go ahead, merchant man.
Yeah, my question is, what is the safety of ordinary Palestinians and even some of Israeli citizens in the face of a situation whereby the arms of the Hamas were not really mop up? They were not extremely disarmed before the peace truce.
Oh, are you saying so what was the state of the Palestinians before October 7th and the Israelis before October 7th?
No. There was a footage I watched 3 days ago.
Okay.
Where in the face of the ongoing peace talk, some of the Hamas militants were killing some of
Palestinians. Right. The gangs. Okay.
Yes. Naming them saboteurs.
Yes.
They were leaking their secrets.
Yes.
So in the face of that, what is the safety of ordinary Palestinian and even some Israelis when those militants have not been extremely exterminated?
Yes. Thank you. Interesting question, actually. So I'm sure you've seen the footage where Hamas were assassinating those they call the gangs. I'd like you to talk to that. And what Merchant Man wants to know is, what is the safety of Palestinians if Hamas doesn't disarm and if Hamas is still able to do that? I have a question here on WhatsApp from Ajibade, who said, please ask him, is there any difference between Putin and Netanyahu? As far as I'm concerned, they are both war criminals. Over to you, Miko. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. So basically, we had the question about the gangs and the collaborators.
Yes.
Well, Israel always, Israel hasn't invented anything. Every colonial regime, every occupier, every oppressor in the history always had to use collaborators from within the occupied, from within the oppressed, using their weakness in order to gain information, in order to gain control, but paying off people and so forth. Well, Palestine is no different. Palestine is plagued with this thing of collaborators. And so what we're seeing in Gaza, of course, Israel is trying to, foment more and more violence and more controversy among Palestinians. So that's what it is. Safety of Palestine. There is no such thing as safety for Palestinians. Any Israeli can kill any Palestinian anywhere between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean, and there are no consequences. Nobody cares. The police won't even start an investigation. Certainly, Palestinians kill Palestinians. That's even better than for Israel. That's like that's a dream come true. There is no such thing as safety. Palestinians are not protected by any law, by any government, by any institution. Nothing. Laws for Palestinians are the laws of oppression, the laws that limit their lives and make their lives hell. That's what the laws are for Palestinians. There is no law that protects them. There is no institution, no body that protects Palestinians. But Palestinian lives are expendable. And that's exactly the problem. That's why Israel is allowed to commit this genocide. And I would argue that genocide started when Israel was established. Didn't start 2 years ago. So there is no such thing as safety. There are no guarantees. There's no such thing as safety and security for Palestinians.
Okay, let me ask my question quickly before the lines go again. So we have Tony Blair that's about to be that may be the CEO of this new so-called organization that's going to oversee Gaza. I don't even know what to call it, although they have a sort of fancy name for it. What are your thoughts on that? The very same Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of the UK, the man who, with George Bush, said Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, who then came out later, having killed almost 1 million Iraqis, to apologize. What are we to make of that?
Well, it's complete nonsense. I mean, for a non-Palestinian to come and govern Palestinians, it makes no sense whatsoever. It's like you said earlier. It's just a different name for taking power over away from the Palestinians, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, Israel violated the ceasefire and is continuing the genocide. So all of that 20-point plan and all these pie in the sky dreams, none of it's going to come to fruition because Israel violated and is bombing heavily, both in the Gaza death camp and now in Lebanon for a while. They've been bombing Lebanon as well. Israel is the most destabilizing element in Western Asia and North Africa. I mean, that's been the case from the very beginning. So I don't believe any of that is going to actually take place. Tony Blair or not Tony. It's funny that they bring Tony Blair suddenly. Why the hell Tony Blair? I mean, what virtue is
so that's what I'm asking. Where did he come from?
Is the virtue?
So left field.
I don't know. They pull him out every so often. They pull him out and they pretend like he's going to do something in the middle, in Palestine, and then nothing happens again. I don't understand it. It's completely absurd. It's completely absurd.
Thank you. Hello.
I want to ask you a guest. Hello?
I can hear you very quickly.
Okay. Yeah, Monica from First Act. I just want to ask you a guest. Given the fact, I mean, I like his, although he's a little bit utopian from the realities, but you never know. For that one state version that, or his
yes, one state solution,
that is sovereign.
Yes.
Is it possible for it to happen without the support of America's president?
Okay.
And is it possible to have an American president that will not be Zionist?
Okay, that will not be pro-Israel.
All the forces, including CIA.
Thank you. It's an interesting question. Is it possible to have an American president that's not pro-Israel? And I have a question here, Sergey. Please ask your guest, why are Palestinians not loved by Arabs? That's from Aki. And then I'm going to pick up one more call. Hello.
Yeah, welcome.
Titular, very quickly, short question, short.
Yes, thank you. One state solution is not feasible. At the end of the day, you're going to have democracy. Look at the population of
What is your short question? I'm literally about to go off air. What is your short question? The point is
that democratically, it will not be at the disadvantage of the Israeli of today. So by that reason, it's not feasible. Problem will continue. Let everybody go apart and build their own. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's a comment, not a question. So there you go. Can I give you a minute to answer those three, Miko, if I can, so I can sneak in a couple more? The lines are going crazy.
Yes, I think U.S. support. Of course, none of this happens without American support. However, if you remember, the United States was the last country to support the fight against apartheid in South Africa. So, but what is happening in the United States is because of the pressure from below, the politics is changing. And so gradually the politics is going to change, and the idea of supporting Zionism is going, people will understand it's something that's absurd, that there should be no tolerance for Zionism. So that's a work in progress. Politicians only do the right thing when they're forced to do so. Their constituents have to make them do it. but I believe we're on our way to get to that point. And I don't accept that Arabs don't like Palestinians. I mean, I don't know any Arab country that doesn't support the Palestinians, from Yemen all the way up to, Northern Africa and Iraq, everywhere you go. Of course, there's support. What I think the caller is asking about is the Arab governments. And Arab governments have seen what happened when you're an Arab government and you support the Palestinians and you stand up to Israel, you end up like Iraq, you end up like Syria, you end up like Yemen, you end up like Libya. That's what happens to them. So they have to be careful. They don't want their countries destroyed. So they have to walk a very, very fine line. On the one hand, their constituents support Palestine and so forth, but on the other hand, they have to maintain their country. They don't want to end up like Libya. So, but I don't believe that the Arabs don't like Palestinians. I believe it's exactly the opposite.
Okay. Antitolokwe says he doesn't agree with you on the first. Well, that's his opinion. But let me sneak in one question. Mamdani, he is literally that politician. I know you don't live in New York, but you kind of sound like a New York guy. You don't really sound like a Washington guy, actually, Miko. If I may be honest, you don't. Washington people are so sterile in so many ways.
They are,
yeah. Really. So, Mamdani, do you think he can win, given his stance, the fact that he has said he will arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes into New York, should he become mayor? Or do you think if he does become mayor, he will chicken out and he won't do it? Will he go all diplomacy on us?
I hope not. I think his victory is pretty much guaranteed unless something horrible happens. I think it's guaranteed. I think he set the new tone for young politicians in America. Courageous, just standing up for what they believe in. And the Mamdani model is now the model that every other candidate, all the young candidates are going after. He's very personable. He's very friendly. He's very positive. He does not budge. He's very good, in explaining himself. So, God willing, he will become the mayor of New York, and that will be the new model of American politicians. Absolutely.
Miko Peled, you are the first friend of the house. You are now always friend of the house. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you. All the best. Have a fabulous weekend.
Now, wow. Oga, 73 years no dey show for your eyes, oh. You see, they look your phone with ordinary eyes, and it still dey sharp, all the shine on top.
My pikin, sense no be so. Now, Visionaries eye supplement. Now, I dey drink every day.
Visionaries eye supplement.
One sharp eyes not be by age. Visionaries eye supplement is made from natural ingredients and contains essential vitamins plus omega-3. Visionaries eye supplement is a product of Vitabiotics UK. Visionaries, let your eyes speak.
.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.